When I hunt ruffed grouse, I choose to kill only male grouse. When I hunt woodcock, I choose to kill only male woodcock. My personal hero, the late Roger Latham, Ph.D., made this bold statement to the 16th class of Pennsylvania Wildlife Conservation Officers at the Ross Leffler School of Conservation in 2003, 1975. A renowned wildlife biologist, famous outdoor writer, and an avid upland hunter, Latham respected the value of females to the survival of wildlife species, just as nature tends to favor them. I was incredulous to think that anyone could identify the sex of these birds in flight since they are monomorphic, that is, similar in appearance. Few hunters can identify the sex of grouse and woodcock when in the hand. At the time, that was true for me too, despite years of grouse and woodcock hunting experience. What a braggart, I thought. But as my idealism of him faded, skepticism of his claim ignited a gnawing curiosity and a personal challenge to try to emulate his selective targeting of male-only ruffed grouse and woodcock. The quest revealed his real message: learn to see. Latham was recognized as a wildlife management expert and consummate naturalist, but his reputation as an upland bird hunter with legendary wing shooting skills was of even greater interest to me. The pursuit of ruffed grouse and woodcock was my personal addiction, but the idea of identifying their sexes on the wing had never entered my mind. Both sexes were and are legal game all across their home ranges. Latham was down to earth, never boastful or self-focused. For this reason, I had to know if selective shooting were possible, and I set about trying to learn this specialized skill. With a little study and practice, I discovered that selectively shooting only male grouse and woodcock is surprisingly simple. Each bird displays rather obvious sex indicators related to proportion, size, color, and flight characteristics. But the viewer must know what he or she is seeing. In reality, our vision is more of a mental than physical function. The informed mind sees much more clearly and with greater accuracy than the untrained eye. Our mental eye can be trained to recognize the field marks of all manners of wildlife, wildflowers, trees, etc., so much so that the sex of grouse and woodcock on the wing is readily obvious. Once we learn to recognize the field indicators, sexual ID becomes easy. Male ruffed grouse appear notably larger than hens, even though their weight disparity is only a few ounces. Males average 1 pound, 7 ounces in weight, and the average hen weighs 1 pound, 4 ounces. Their weights may vary up to 2.5 ounces, based on seasonal variations and food conditions. The average physical size of ruffed grouse is 17 inches in length, with an average wingspan of 23 inches. These dimensions may vary up to 2 inches. Although generally similar in size and shape, when in flight, male grouse appear larger, longer, and more robust than the hen, and his profile sports a notably longer and broader tail. In flight, an eye-catching dark subterminal tail band arches boldly across the grouse's flared tails. That arch on the hen's stubby tail band will almost always appear to be broken or separated at its center, but the band on the male's broad tail will nearly always be continuous and unbroken. A few males display a broken tail band, but the male's tail is obviously longer and broader than that of the smaller hen. The break in the subterminal tail band is because of a variegation of colors in the bird's central two tail feathers. The male's tail feathers average 6¼ inches or more in length, while the hen's average 5¾ inches. In flight, a male's tail appears to comprise 1/3 of the bird's length, while the hen's appears to be just 1/4 of hers. Her tail appears stubby in comparison to the male's. These disparities are quite easily noted in flying birds. When flared to their broadest extent, male tails might span nearly 18 inches from tip to tip. Both sexes of ruffed grouse are legal game, but even if hunters do not care to shoot selectively, nature has a way of protecting the precious hens. Those who keep journals of their hunts readily notice that hen grouse commonly comprise just 5 to 20% of their yearly bags. It's nature's way for hens to be more secretive and elusive, and we've got to appreciate that. Grouse, especially young-of-the-year males, might act fearlessly in front of a dog and hold for a point more commonly than do hens. On occasion, the bold boy birds will tease a pointing dog by pumping their broadly fanned tails while walking slowly away from that quivering nose. Conversely, the sly hens will commonly slink away quickly and silently on foot and often flush well out of shotgun range. I've also observed hen grouse flitting rather silently away from me and the dog's approach. It is quite common for hens' escape flight paths to be lower to the forest floor, while the big, bold males often explode into steeply ascending, rocket-like flight. Selective gunning of woodcock is equally easy once the telltale physical characteristics of the sexes are learned. Hen woodcock are notably larger than the males, with obviously wider wingspans, longer bills, and overall lighter-colored feathers. Hens fly quite deliberately and often opt for low-level flight paths. The obviously smaller males fly faster and much more erratically than do the big hens. Males have been called Labrador twisters, a name that notes their commonly late-season migration schedules and their ultra-quick and erratic flight characteristics. Hen woodcock can weigh a full ounce more than the smaller male, but in a robin-sized bird, an ounce is substantial and readily noticeable. Recognizing the lighter overall color of the hen's feather cloak, compared to the darker feathers of the male, requires some experience, but one quickly learns to recognize the obviously longer bills of the hen birds. In addition to overall size, the woodcock's bill length is a key field mark indicating the bird's sex. The hen's bill extends 3 inches from the bird's face, while the male's bill appears to be a half-inch shorter. For a quick measurement in the field, hunters commonly lay their woodcock across the width of a US dollar bill. The bill of a female extends across and beyond the dollar. That of a male will be shorter. The wingspan of a large hen woodcock can extend to 16 inches. I once measured a hen wingspan at a surprising 18 inches. A male bird's wingspan appears to be a third narrower on birds in flight. The twittering wing beat of a hen also appears to be slower and more deliberate than the blur of a corkscrewing, zipping, zigging, and zagging male's wings. The audible frequency of the wing twittering is another sex indicator. In the fall, hen woodcock tend to migrate southward much earlier than the males. The boys tend to defy winter's approach before reluctantly following, often much later when the snow flies. Early season gunning on woodcock is generally on hen birds, while the late season shooting is predominantly on male birds. Quite interestingly, early season migrants tend to favor woody cover compositions that are younger and fairly open, while flights of late traveling males tend to drop into older, more mature covers. The body size, bill length, and overall color are obvious on flying woodcock, making selective shooting rather easy. Opting to shoot only male birds can extend your days afield in pursuit of the meager 3-bird bag limit. This is particularly true during the early fall seasons, when hen birds comprise a majority of the woodcock in the migratory flights. My wildlife biologist friend or hunting companion of 30-plus years, the late Al Geis, Ph.D., was an especially avid upland hunter who always accurately called the sex of grouse and woodcock in flight. He was never wrong. We called each shot and enjoyed testing our skills. Doing so added greatly to our enjoyment of every hunt. In reality, mastering this enjoyable skill is quite simple and can be learned in one gunny, seasoned through careful observation of the birds on the wing and then identifying their sex when brought to hand. The process is enjoyable and deepens our appreciation of these wonderful birds. For a quick path to learning to identify the sex and age of harvested birds, you can't beat these pamphlets from the Ruffed Grouse Society, www.ruffedgrousesociety.org. A grouse in the hand and a woodcock in the hand. Each contains a removable, water-resistant field guide that can be carried in an upland vest pocket. They are must-have items for upland hunters. In reality, selective gunning of ruffed grouse and woodcock is rather simple once one learns to recognize the obvious field marks of the birds on the wing. Shooting selectively to avoid taking hens is a noble quest and a serious challenge that is certain to enhance your enjoyment of the hunt and impart a pleasing sense of ethical conservation. Republished with permission from Learning to See by Tim Flanigan, 2018. The Upland Almanac, Summer 2018. 2018 by Tim Flanigan.